Grounding, for those that don't know it, who are listening, is this idea of being skin on contact with the ground, aiming for a minimum 20 minutes a day. And it shows in repeated studies, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies, reduced inflammation, reduced cortisol, and accelerated healing, all sorts of things.
First thing I would say is be kinder to yourself. We sometimes can really self-sabotage and be unkind to ourselves. Some things are going to fall by the wayside for a short period of time. It's whether or not you can pick it back up again. If you had more time, what would you do? If you had less time, what would you immediately give up? If you had more money, what would you do? If you had less money, what would you give up? If you knew more people, what would you do? If you knew less people, what would you do? These are the questions that sometimes help us find our purpose and understand what it is that we're doing.
Afternoon, buddy. How are we doing this afternoon?
I've been doing better, shall we say.
Yes,
I think I've
give
just
me
been
an honest
talking to
answer. Give me an honest
I'm
answer.
under the weather today. I've got something called labyrinthitis, something I'd never heard of before. And it's basically an imbalance or a bacterial infection in the ear, which means that I feel like I've got 24/7 vertigo or motion sickness. And there might be moments where you see me grabbing my chair because I feel like I'm losing my balance and doing this.
Oh my
It's
God.
really discombobulating. It's really it just makes you feel motion sick. And I've got a perforated eardrum on top of that. So I'm on antibiotics, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
it doesn't sound
Anyway,
great. When you
I had
said
a great holiday in Italy. I should be back from holiday revived and full of vigor, and I'm feeling ill and sorry for
well,
myself.
this
But
is the thing is a lot of people when they go on holiday, they come back and they need a holiday, especially if it's like a camping holiday. I've had a few people in my life going camping holidays and they come back and
yeah.
it's just like, I need another holiday. And a lot of people, they did go on holiday, and because it gives your body that time to rest and reset a little bit, it allows for everything to come out, and all the things that were lurking in the background suddenly happen, and your body's a little bit weaker, and so you're more likely to have things. But how did you get the perforated eardrum? Was that from the pool, you said, or was that from the
So
rides?
honestly, I don't know. So long story short, I've just come back from Italy. Wonderful trip to Tuscany. We went to Pisa. We stayed in Tirana. We then went to San Vincenzo with the family. Yeah, really lovely time. Good weather. Bit of an R&R. So mixture of seaside and pools at different places. But I'm quite prone to ear infections. I've got small ear canals, as doctors used to tell me as a kid. I was the kid that always had olive oil in their ears at school, like 24/7. I always got compacted wax. It's not my hearing's always been poor. So it doesn't take long for me to get an ear infection. So I picked one up on the first few days. And I can deal with that. It was just kind of like I knew it was bad, ear was blocked, try to unblock it, whatever. But I started getting real pain down the back of my ear, down, and it went down into the neck, and I was like, "Oh, this has become worse. I need to go and see someone." So I went to the pharmacist. They gave me some ear drops and stuff, and that was all right. But it kind of managed the pain anyway, and it kind of even still haven't got much hearing in the ear. But the the last day, we thought we'd have a really good day with the kids, so we went to a place called Calavino Matter, which is like a thought park, but better. Like the rides are way better, no queues. There were 5 adrenaline rides. And I always avoid the spinny ones, right? They always make me feel sick. I used to be able to do them. I can't do them anymore. We did a standing roller coaster, which I looped the loop, which was awesome. And my daughter was feeling pretty sick after that. There was one ride we hadn't done, and it swung that way, if you're watching, and that way at the same time.
Oh God.
And basically, my son wanted to do it. My daughter said she won't do it unless I do it. So I was like, well, I'll go on, but it'll make me feel a bit motion sick, but it's fine. I think that ride has moved something on the inner ear canal because I came off thinking, "Oh god, that's made me feel more sick than usual." But it hasn't gone. I've been sick for 4 days. This is
Mm.
motion sickness, and I feel like I'm still on the ride. It is horrible.
Oh
I
my
went to
God.
the doctor. I was booked in to see him for something else, luckily. So I was able to see him on my first day back. I had to go stay in London for a couple of days, so I saw him yesterday, and then he did a few tests and said, "Yeah, you've got," and looked inside, so you've got perforated eardrum, and you've got an infection behind the eardrum, and it's bacterial, so we need to get that sorted out. We don't want that getting into the inner ear because then it can get more serious. And yeah, you've got this labyrinthitis, which is what's giving you the vertigo. So on antibiotics, which was probably a conversation because I try really hard not to take antibiotics. I offer them.
Yeah.
I very rarely will accept the prescription, but I can't suffer this feeling, and it's bacterial. So
Yeah. Well,
I
that's what
kill all of my good gut bacteria. 'Cause I know that's what it
that's what
does,
I
and
was
not everyone's
saying
aware. So
to
maybe we should bring to the
yeah,
table
you
what it
before we
does.
came on air, is that antibiotics are great, right? They're great, like a little kind of invention of the last 100 years or so, but massively overprescribed. And that's why I was asking you, because I think like 90% of people being prescribed antibiotics are not even confirmed as having bacterial infections. It's like viral infection or something like that, which it does absolutely zero for.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, antibiotics, the most use of antibiotics actually, I don't know if it's in the UK, but certainly in the US, is animal feed, and things like that. So,
Mm.
so you get a lot of antibiotics in the system anyway through consumption of certain foods, which is not great because then it means they're not going to be valid. And like you say, like antibiotic means anti-life. It just kills it all the life, not just. It's like a neutron bomb, is like I like to, or a hydrogen bomb. It kills everything, good and bad. So, yeah, you definitely have to be up in the kimchi and the sauerkraut and the fermented
It can
yogurt.
take up to a year, if I'm right in thinking, to replenish your gut fauna and your gut
Yeah, I
bacteria,
mean,
and
to be
oh,
fair,
that's
the gut can change quite quickly, but when you do something like that with antibiotics, it takes a long time. It's like growing a garden. It's like just growing the garden, right?
and then just digging it all up.
Yeah, you
It's
dig it
quite a
all
bit.
up. It takes time, and depending on what you feed it, maybe sooner or later. I think the last time I took antibiotics, it was 2018 when I had this weird. Don't know if we mentioned it before or not, but I had this weird. It was probably one of the scariest moments of my life, where I woke up in the middle of the night about 3 a.m. and wasn't able to breathe.
Oh, that's
And
pretty scary.
it's actually shortly after I think we did that interview on your other podcast back in 2018, because I remember at the time, I think I had a bit of a cough, and that cough continued for, long story short, I think after months, they said I was some sort of laryngeal spasm, and basically my thing inside my throat was inflamed. And when you sleep, the folds kind of come down, and if they're inflamed, then they trap the air. And so I was super scared. I mean, I woke up, I could not breathe. I was trying to invert myself. I smashed my bathroom to pieces. Um, I ended up going to the hospital and I couldn't sleep that night. I ended up somehow getting hold of my folks who weren't picking up their phone. And then just went around there at like 5 in the morning and didn't sleep that night at all. But they gave me antibiotics eventually when I went and saw someone, and they had no idea what they were even dealing with. They're like, "Oh, just give you antibiotics." And I asked the question, and they go, "Well, if you want to question things, go privately." I'm like, "Dude, you're adding to the problems of antibiotics by just giving antibiotics for anything you have no idea what you're giving it for."
Well, I'm gonna say credit to my doctor. I was booked in to see him for something else, and he was really good. He took the time to have a look and prescribed it straight away. I've got 5 days of prescriptions. I said I really don't like antibiotics. Well, usually I'll give a 7-day. I'll give you a 5-day. See how you get on. He's put me back in for a month. I can't swim for 6 weeks, so I had an
Mm.
Ironman race, no booked in, so I can't do that. And maybe I just a little bit more rest and recuperation, but had a great holiday. You want to come back full of, energy and recovery, and I'll come out, I feel even now looking at you, mate, on this show, and for this is I feeling disorientated, dizzy, and pretty rough. But hopefully
Yeah.
it'll clear quickly now.
I
But
I've never really experienced that. I think the closest I've ever got was when I was traveling 25 years ago. I worked as a hostie on the Great Barrier Reef, so I wanted to dive for free, and one way of diving for free was to volunteer your time cleaning the dishes and whatever. So I was 4 days on a boat, and then when I came off the boat, I remember being in the shower in the hostel and then falling into the walls as I was in the shower. Because your body get so my question actually, and I don't know if you'd wanna do this, because if it's a perforated eardrum, nothing but time is gonna heal it probably, but, whether there's a way that you could reverse or mimic the thing that set it up. So you were upside down spinning around, and obviously I here at my place, as you know, I've got that yoga trapeze. I don't think you've got that, but you've got is there any way that
I
you could,
call it a
like,
sex swing, but yeah, you will call it yoga trees.
yeah, is there any way you could, like, either hang or maybe even go on the edge of your bed and then lie
Mate,
down
mate,
upside
no.
down?
And I
No.
probably could. It's the last thing I wanna do. Like, I feel like I'm
Yeah.
still on the ride. Like, that would just
Right.
I think that'd literally make me vom.
Uh-huh.
It's a real battle just to get out of bed. It's how this summer, I like to be up and energetic. I am everything walking up and downstairs is it's a battle. My balance is all off. I just
So how
feel
I mean,
horrible.
my question to you, because I often cite you to many every friend, even like the other day, I think I was chatting to someone, I said, like, "Nick is the fittest person I know," right? Bar none,
But
I
was
think.
in there now, not anymore.
Well, yeah, I bet also you've got that mindset as well, and I know for me personally, when I'm injured, obviously it affects my mental health, affects everything. But how are you coping with just, your Ironman now being shelved, difficulty getting up and down the stairs? Like, and before you answer, I'm kind of thinking in terms of like, because I've been thinking a lot recently about, I'm coming to my birthday next week as well. You've just had your birthday. Um, not, I don't want to talk about mortality, but just this aging process. And obviously, everything I talk about is about health, vitality, longevity. And I do feel like we've got a huge amount of control about how we manifest that. But at some point, there also is you're swimming against the tide. I mean, you can still do it, but it's tough. So how do you feel with all that? Are you feeling like, because I know the last 5 years I've felt older than the previous
Yeah,
5.
look, this is definitely without question been the year I felt oldest. And obviously, I am, so I get that. But I felt it this year. I've had 3 hamstring pulls. I'm ill now. I think illness comes when I'm not training, so I've not been able to train anyway. I think when I'm not training, I'm more susceptible to illness. So I've wasn't been able to train because of my hamstring strain. I go on holiday, I get ill. So it's frustrating. I don't mind at the moment because I couldn't think of anything worse now than going for a run or getting on a bike. I want to lie down on my bed and go to sleep. So I can handle it for this has been 3 or 4 days. I think the hamstring issues have had more of a psychologically negative impact because you're unable to train, you're unable to prepare or get what you need to, and you get back to fitness and it goes again. It's gone 3
Mhm.
times in a year, so I know I need more rest. This
Yeah.
was actually I went for two very short runs, 7K and 5K, and one of those was with my wife on holiday, and that is the least I've ever done on a break in my life. Like, I
Mm.
didn't do any exercise. I just chilled, and it's been good for my system. I don't know if I told you, I was having these moments where I was getting very lightheaded, feeling really exhausted, and we talked about maybe I was a bit low on iron. You and I were talking about it last time
Yeah.
on the show. That feeling by the day about 4 or 5 days left to go, starts to subside, and I just wonder if I was just exhausted. 'Cause of those symptoms I was having despite the ear problem seem to have disappeared on this holiday, and I think maybe I was just overstressed or overworking it. So, I
Yeah, I mean,
think it's been good for me.
you can't discount stress, and like whether you notice you've got the stress or not, just work, everything adds to it, depletes the immune system, depletes your ability to recover from injuries, all of that
And
sort of
and the
stuff.
sun gives you energy, right? I know you've got something I wanna talk about today, which is these new grounding sheets you've bought. I'm intrigued to have a look at those, but
Well, yeah, I wasn't
I
gonna
was
talk
out in the
about that, but yeah, I will.
sunshine, Tuscany was stunning, beautiful sea, despite that gave me an ear infection, but, the sand was lovely. Good food. I wouldn't that look, I have gone off the gluten-free wagon this week, I will not lie, but Italian
Mm.
food is my favorite food. I'm a huge pasta fan, and we've eaten more pizza and pasta than any stomach should muster in 2 weeks. I'm sure there's a bit of inflammation from that as well, to be fair. It wouldn't have helped.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I
But
mean, whenever I eat that sort of stuff, I notice it. I mean, I've been a bit slack at the beginning of the week because I've been traveling to and from Brighton and on the motorway and then stopping and having service station stuff and then succumbing to things that I wouldn't normally eat. And I sometimes feel it instantly within 20 minutes, like my face greases up, but then obviously my sinuses block up if I have gluten or depending on the kind of gluten I have, and then I don't sleep that well, and my whole ear. I mean, I had loads of sinus issues growing up, so I've gone through the whole earaches, nose cauterized, nose bleeds, blocked nose, sinus issues, and so I have to be a bit careful. And actually, I haven't told you this, but I'm also, I got injured and I had my feet, like one foot was injured and then the other foot. Then they looked at some markers and they did more blood tests, and then there was a high elevation of this particular thing showing chronic inflammation, like not just acute inflammation, which is interesting. But something called anti-CCP, and when that's raised, it's an indicator of rheumatoid arthritis, which for me was quite. It's not a
interesting.
diagnosis yet because I'm being referred to the rheumatologist, and that won't happen till October.
Yeah.
But that for me was like, oh my god, right? Like,
Well, I
that's
get
an
it.
autoimmune disease or issue. And technically, I think 70% of it is hereditary, and there isn't, I don't think, anything in the family. And a doctor friend of mine was like, well, I think what will be the best course they'll probably suggest like just monitoring it and seeing what happens.
Well,
But I'm now acutely aware even more about what I need to do to try and reduce
you may wanna
inflammation.
look at a new product I've just started, while we're here. I got back from holiday, arrived while I was away. I've struggled with inflammation, partly diet, gluten. I'm trying to cut it out, but this holiday was horrendous. But I think I have a massage once a week with my wife, who's a sports massage therapist, and I have a lot of inflammation in the body. So I've just bought something called Kurt. Have you heard of it? They
No.
It's worth looking at. It's basically a very potent form of turmeric and curcumin and all the different things that help with inflammation in the body. But they believe it's through their tests, it's way more absorbable than most supplements that you would try. It's 1 ml in your water. It's not a tablet form. It tastes quite nice actually. So I've had 2 days of that because I've had chronic inflammation. I'm hoping that will. will help me out a little bit. So I'll keep you posted. They
Yeah,
give you a
do
tracker.
posted because I wanna do this other thing first. I am taking, like, a high potency curcumin bioavailable one that I've taken for a while now. But one of the big things, so I am trying to reduce, obviously, things that cause inflammation in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, but also, yeah, leading on to the grounding sheets, because grounding, for those that don't know it, who are listening, is this idea of being skin on contact with the ground. It could be your feet usually, could be a hand or whatever if it's the winter and you're not walking barefoot. Aiming for a minimum 20 minutes a day. Um, and it shows in repeated studies, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies, reduced inflammation, reduced cortisol, and accelerated healing, all sorts of things. And I recently bought these sheets that I was talking about, and the reason I've had grounding sheets for about 10 years now.
Yeah, you've talked to me
Typically,
about them a few times.
yeah, and typically what happens, they're not the most good looking sheets. You put them over the top of your bed and they wear through, especially like I've got quite rough feet in the heels, and so they always wear through. And so eventually they wear out and we reshape them into like pillowcases and use them like that. They basically plug into the ground port of your plug, right? The third pin in your plug. And provided your house is properly grounded, which you can kind of check with another device, then it simulates being on the earth because you're effectively grounding yourself. But the new sheets I bought, and I've only had them a week. I got them from Australia. They are very expensive. However, what I like about them is that
What's very expensive?
depends on the size that you're buying, but like 130 to 160 pound for a sheet. Yeah. However, like I was saying to my sister, something you're spending 8 hours a day doing, and sleep being probably the most important of the three basic pillars of our health and longevity, is the one to get right. You don't want to scrimp on mattresses, pillows, duvets, sheets. You want to spend all the money you've got on your sleep environment, in my opinion. So about, let's say, I got Super King size sheets, so I think they're about 130, 140, although my sister wants an Emperor one, 160. But either way, they go underneath your normal sheets because they've got like a high level of conductivity in them. So you can put them underneath your normal sheets, which means you don't need to wash them as often. They won't wear through in the same way. You can keep I have my bamboo sheets as well. So I like my bamboo sheets over the top. And what I have noticed, both subjectively and objectively, is my sleep has definitely changed. Right, some people will take months, but I'm quite like notice it quite a lot. Like my dream sleep has gone up. My dreams are more vivid. I feel more rested. I feel like more awake in the morning when I come to wake up. And I've got sheets. Both I had to buy two sets. So I've got one in London and one in Brighton. And both places, so different mattresses, because one's an airbed that I'm in Brighton, and one is my normal bed here.
I
Um,
know it has to work if you're going to invest in it because you do a lot of research before you ever plunge into a purchase.
well, I mean, this one was a bit of more of an impromptu. I had like an Instagram ad. I went on, checked out their stuff, and kind of got sold on the idea. I mean, I've been sold on the idea of grounding sheets anyway, but I'm sold on the idea of it being a sheet that goes underneath the normal sheet. Um, so yeah, I'm a big fan. And the thing is, if that can help reduce the inflammation, everything now in my life will be even more focused on reducing
But
inflammation, I
definitely
think.
take a look at the Kirk stuff. It's
Mm.
kirk.life is the domain.
Is it with a K or a
Again,
P?
Kurk. Um,
Kurk.
they claim to have a unique formulation that enables you to absorb it more. It says, I've got it in front of me now. The curcumin obviously is the hero compound, but it says that historically the absorption has been limited, which reduces its full potential. No longer the case with increased absorption. We've unlocked its full power. They've created a way of sealing it, sealing the curcumin crystals in this water
Okay.
bubble way of
Yeah.
doing it. So look, I'm gonna give it a go. What I liked
I'll
about it
look
though
into it.
is when you get it, they send you a tracker and they ask you to feed back. So they tell you when you should be feeling better by. You keep your own little tracker of whether you use it or not. It's up to you. But I like the idea they're that confident that they want you to monitor the progress, so you
Mm.
feel the difference. And there's no, I don't know. For me, it shows that they're willing to stand by what they
Well,
believe
I
in. So
mean,
I'll give it a
if it
go.
works, I'll definitely be passing it to my brother-in-law as well because he's got, I think that this spinal condition with
Yeah.
the webbing on the nerves, so he can't really walk properly. So everything to do with inflammation. Like, my sister bought him one of these bottles that I'm holding up, one of the hydrogen water bottles. Again, we went for an Australian brand, 130 quid or something for these bottles. So I'm drinking that, which apparently helps with inflammation. Um, but the thing is, all the help that you do with inflammation doesn't really help if you are having things that then
Like
increase the inflammation, like
pizzas and pasta when
pizzas
you're
and late
gluten
nights and
yeah,
dairy and fizzy drinks and sugar
sure.
and all of that is going to increase inflammation. And the thing is, we like to do that because that's life and we like to enjoy life. I guess it's just try and do that in the 5% of your time, not the
Yeah.
80% of your time.
Well,
Um,
the world would be a lot healthier if we stopped doing the things that made us sick.
well, yeah, this is my whole equation that I think I've shared with you before, where H equals H, right? Health equals health, and then you add something to one side of the equation, like late night, and then instead of taking the late night away, you add
Yeah,
coffee, right? And then you add this and you add that. It's like take away the things that are doing the damage rather than trying to introduce things to take away that damage.
exactly. Yeah.
And that's the lunacy of humanity, I guess.
Couple of things I want to bring to life. One is I want to hear how the rest of Mindvalley went because
Oh
you were
yeah.
midway there last time we spoke, a couple of weeks ago.
Mm.
And also we've had a listener question. So let me ask about Mindvalley first, and then I'll jump into the listener question.
I mean, obviously this is a PG show, so I won't go too
Is
far
it a
into it.
PG
But
show? You can do whatever you want it to be, bud. We can put parental advice on there if you need us to.
well, sometimes my mum listens to it, and she's in the other room right now.
Well, that tells me you must have got together with the girl that you'd had the connection with last time we spoke.
No, I didn't actually.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure who that was, that I was speaking about. That was a lesson though, that one. I didn't take action. I think,
Life is lessons.
yeah, someone else kind of swooped in at the same time and that kind of did affect me a little bit because I was like, "Okay, where is it?" Like, basically, it was about action, right? And I didn't take action quick enough, I think. But no, I had some fun, and, met some cool people as ever. I think probably stayed a bit longer than I needed to. I stayed an extra 6 or so days, primarily because I wanted to it's a good opportunity to meet people in a more relaxed environment where not everyone's rushing to a lecture or doing dinners with everyone else. You can get to know people. And I sort of stayed with the intention of getting to know, like, a particular person, but then that kinda didn't really work, um, for reasons still a little
What's
bit.
the PG stuff? The PG, un-PG related stuff. Let's get to the good stuff.
No, 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 we won't go for any of that, but,
'Cause you've always told me that Mindvalley are not sex parties, and I still
they're
question whether
not.
that's true. And
No,
yet
they're
now
not at
we've
all.
got
I
some
mean, like,
content.
half the people that go, I would say over half the people that go are in relationships. Over half of those in relationships are coming with their children. All right. It's just like life in general, right? There's gonna be all sorts of different things happening.
So nothing
it
left
depends.
to report that you were able to report.
I mean, look, I feel like I had a good time.
I'm pushing you, Harry. I'm pushing you. There's no
I
winners or losers. We win or we learn. We win or we learn.
Yeah, exactly. I learned and I won. It depends on your definition of either of those things. Yeah, I mean, did I meet the person I'm gonna go eventually with? No. I don't know if that's the right environment for that or not these days because it's all quite manic and there's lots of people around. But and I didn't really pursue the business angle, which I think I'm going to do a bit more next year when I go. I need to step up on the business side in that environment, and do more of my own
Yeah,
little
nice.
events
I think you
whilst
should as
doing
well.
that.
That'd be good.
Yeah,
By the
doing
way,
that.
if you suddenly saw me flinch, apologies if you're watching this on and you wonder what I did. A spider just dropped to the ceiling and landed on me, and I'm an an arachnophobia anyway,
Oh,
and I didn't know the
really?
size of it, so I
I
suddenly had this mad flinch and look up, but it's down
did
there.
not know that. Um,
Caught
but
me off
um,
guard.
let's go to the kind of listener question anyway, because
Okay,
that was
let me read it
interesting.
out. Hey guys, I should say, hey, great show, all that malarkey. We'll leave that bit here. But not sure if you've thought about this topic, but over the summer it was great. I ate well, exercised, etc. But going back to work after the holidays, I feel as if everything has dropped off.
Sneaky bug.
Um, my kids now back at school. Maybe you can talk about post-holiday blues. Maybe it's about keeping regimes to help other working parents. Then they followed up with, let's go around. To add context, it's things like I'm up at 5:30 and yet everything is still a rush to get to school and work on time. The last 2 mornings have happened, which put on added pressure. There are some incidents that happened, which we went into more detail with. I won't share here. I had a plan to have breakfast after the school run. Instead, I was in hospital until lunch. Summer has its own challenges, but with relaxed club drop offs and people on holiday, everything seems more relaxed. So being mindful and healthy seems easier. The pace, though, since returning has picked up. And with it, I've skipped meals and lost many of my regimes. I'm constantly rushing. Um, then there were calendars and scheduling with school events on top, and lots of milestones I just can't hit when I'm working like this. Sorry for rambling. Hope it helps the discussion. Can you help?
Yeah. So, I mean, my initial instinct to you when I heard that or read that the other day, and I'll probably say this repeatedly in case people join this podcast halfway through. I can't necessarily speak with any authority to the having to rush kids and stuff. I mean, yes, occasionally I'm looking after nieces and that, and I appreciate that when I do that, things do not go the way that they go when they're not there, right? Like I don't do the routines, I don't do the things that I want to do. However, I will caveat that a little bit. I was looking after my nieces last week in Brighton, a 2-year-old and 11-year-old. And the way I've got things set up, even in the house in Brighton, is, I have a little indoor basketball court. I've got like soft play mats. I've got the balls and things. And the 2-year-old, she feels very comfortable there. She's only been there a few times, but she feels very comfortable. She goes into the box. She gets out the ball. She gets, I put the basketball thing lower down for her. And for me, it's about making my life about play, and then also then the young people come in and do that. So that my exercise wasn't what I wanted it to be, but it actually might have even been better because I was doing more of the crawling and sitting on the mat and legs out, like, sitting with my legs wide apart and having to do things with her, which actually is quite a struggle, right? Sometimes, right? And so I was doing that. And then I wanted to make my juice and my smoothie. And she's very curious and she's super helpful. Um, so she came up, and then I have bought some, not a high chair, but a bench. What do they call them? And the kind of high chairs that you have by a kitchen bench or whatever. So I put her in one of those, and she helped me, and I'm explaining and saying, what is this? Oh, this is tomato. This is this. And so every time I'm saying something, she's saying it back. She's learning all about the fruits and the vegetables. She's learning how I do the juice and stuff. And yes, it might take 10 years of her watching that to actually end up being able to do it herself. But I think it's about starting them young so that even though it will take you longer to do things, eventually when they get to like 10, 11, 12, hopefully they know what they're doing. And even when I was doing the washing up, she was so great. She would sit on the opposite side of the island, and she knows how to do on and off with the tap. So I would wash and I'd say on, and she would turn it on, and I'd say off, and she's super helpful. So for me, when I got my nieces, it's about getting them involved and doing my exercise, my routines as part of them, adapted. And I think my answer to almost everything will be about the whole CCC stuff that we talk about all the time: control what you can control, code what you can't, and concentrate on what's important. And I think my overarching advice to this person is that, you know, yes, have a framework of how you want to do things, but it's always about flexibility within that framework, and know that you can't do the things that you want to do all the time the way you want to do them, but also recognizing when that gets a little bit out of hand, something you've gone 2, 3, 4 months and you haven't been able to do the things, where maybe you have to change things. And the other thing I would say, and again, I'm speaking as someone, as you probably are aware, who's like pretty organized. I think organized would be one of the 3 words that a lot of my friends would describe me as. And often I was annoyed with that because I was thinking, oh, it doesn't sound very sexy or exciting. Like, oh, he's very organized, instead of like creative or spontaneous or whatever, which I believe I am as well. But I have a phrase in my book called RAF, right? And rules allow freedom. And that comes down to the organizational part, is when you are organized, you do feel like you have more space to be spontaneous, more space to do things. So I think for me, when it comes, like just to this morning, for example, I had some time. So I set up all of my smoothie boxes. So I have a little small Tupperware, and I put all the different powders, potions, nuts, seeds into that, so that in the mornings, I don't have to think too hard. I just tip it into a thing, tip the veg in, and good to go. So for me, it's about when you find those windows of opportunity to sit down, think about what is going to make the next 3 days easier, right? What do I need to do to make things easier, simplified, autonomous? That would be my advice as a non-parent
Yeah,
who isn't living.
I think all of that applies whether I'm a parent or not. I don't think that matters. I think a lot of stuff from Atomic Habits here as well, and routine. You talk to organization, I'd call it routine. It's really, really important. I think the first thing I would say is be kinder to yourself. Like, you talked about me about how do I feel when I can't exercise. We sometimes can really self-sabotage and be unkind to ourselves. And if you've got children at a new school, you've just had your holidays, some things are going to fall by the wayside for a short period of time. It's whether or not you can pick it back up again. In order to pick things back up again, we need that routine. And you mentioned it there. So if you want to get your workout done, prepare your stuff the night before, so when you get up, it's easy to do. Find the time to do the things that matter. But you need a strong why as well. I know it's a bit cliche to talk about the why, but if you haven't got it, you'll let things slip. If the why isn't strong enough as to why you want to get fit, why you want to exercise, why you want more time with your kids, then those things will start to slip. And equally, you gave some nice examples there with your niece, but I fall foul of this all the time. I am by far, far, far short of being the perfect parent. And often I'll say to my kids, because I get tired, like everyone does, and say, just do the thing just do the washing up or just do this. But they'll always come back at you, and it's tiring. And if you're able to have the frame of mind to say, look, give them the why. So instead of me saying, Leo, can you do the dishwasher, which is typically what I would say, by the way, because I fall foul of this. It's actually saying, Leo, would you mind helping me with the dishwasher? Because if you're able to get that done for me, it'll give me an extra 10 minutes to play football with you a bit later on. If I have to do it, there's going to be no time for us to play football. And then it actually empowers them to do the thing because their why is stronger. And I think sometimes we're in a rush, and it happens this is more coaching speak now in the workplace, where it's often easier for us to tell people what to do. If you come to me and go, Nick, how do I write this email? It's easy for me to go, do it this way. You don't learn that way, similar to your example with the washing up that you did with your, or the making the smoothies with your niece. The better way of me saying is, well, how do you think you should write it? Tell me what you would do. Taking that few extra moments so that you understand, so you can go and empower yourself to go and do it. I think, look, parenting's tough. Things do fall down. Things happen. You can't always predict. And in this particular example, I know that once something that happened was they shut their hand, the child shut their hand at a car door and ended up in hospital. So
Mm.
you've got to be able to let things go as well and go, okay, don't be hard on yourself for not being able
Yeah,
to exercise. If something like that happens, right? Kids come
exactly.
first. Actually be kind to yourself and say, look, I'm going to be in that moment the best mum I can be by taking my kids to hospital and being there for them. I think I don't know if you've done much work on positive psychology and life domains, but when it comes to life domains, often we get too focused on one particular life domain and it can impact on others. So we work too hard, and when you work too hard, it can impact other life domains as a parent, life domains as someone who's social with their friends, life domains as family, whatever. So I think it's worth doing some homework on how much time you're spending in the life domains that are important to you and seeing if you can rebalance it a little bit. If I'm doing Ironman training, I get out of balance. I end up doing so much training for that race that my family life suffers or my work suffers. And I have to be able to pull myself back in. We've talked before about our energy buckets, and sometimes, you fall short of the social bucket because you kind of do things your way and you have to kind of pull yourself back in. But it's having that mental awareness to step back and go, what am I doing and how can I help myself? If you're rushing with your food eating, you gave a great example. Get the stuff ready before, put it in little tubs and be ready. But if you buy fast food and bad food and leave it in the house, that's what you're going to reach for.
Well, I
Um,
mean, the classic example yesterday, for example, I don't buy things for the house. I've said I eat crisps, I eat chocolates, I do all this stuff, but I tend to go out to get it, right? Because it forces that resistance. However, now obviously when I'm in London, I live with my mum, and she has a habit of buying crisps and actually chocolate I wouldn't normally eat. And yesterday I just needed something, and if there'd been nothing, I would have had nothing. And I went, and we've actually got our own fridges. So I've got a fridge, a full size fridge to myself. And then because she moved from another property that had a fridge anyway, I said, move that. And there was a space for it because I don't want all her stuff in my fridge and vice versa. And so I go into her fridge and I sort of see that she's got like a Kit Kat, and I never eat Kit Kats really. And because of the gluten and the dairy and all that other stuff. And I definitely didn't feel good for having it. It didn't feel good in the moment either. But like my urge would have passed had it not been there because I wouldn't have gone out to get anything. But yeah, so simply having your life set up in a way. But one thing I did want to say, and one thing that I try, I'm kind of really narrow in on what is it I teach. And I feel like more and more this idea of integration is what I really teach. So one of the popular talks I've been doing for a company the last year or so was about integrated mindfulness, because mindfulness can be a practice. People can be scared off by it. You can do lots of mindfulness exercises. They take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. But for me, most of my mindfulness happens while I'm doing other things, right? Brushing the teeth, walking up and down the stairs, whatever. And the same with the exercise. And I was thinking about, so I watched this video yesterday. I don't know if you know that YouTube channel guy, Alpha M. I don't really watch him very often, but he cropped up. He's interesting. But anyway, he was doing a bit of a house tour and he's into his fitness as well. So he's got this massive house now and big gym there. And he showed one of the machines, which was like the Stairmaster, which is that machine where you walk up the stairs.
Yeah.
But and he goes, this is one machine I never go on without. I always go on without fail every day. But he'd also done the tour of his house, and his house was 3 or 4 stories, and it had this big stairwell in the house. And often I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm sure he had a lift in there as well. I was like, but you don't need the Stairmaster, right? And I get it, right? When it's in one place, when you're in the gym, you do it, it's all a bit focused. But my point with that is that it's all about integrating into your life. And it reminds me when I was doing the 3 Peaks challenge, which is where you climb the 3 highest peaks in the UK, in Wales, Scotland, and England. And this was back in 2011. I was working at Sainsbury's head office, and we went for a meeting of all the people who were doing it. And I didn't know them. They're all from different departments. And they were talking about how there's not enough hills in like London to get into practice for it. And I was thinking, look, we're in a building which has got 10 flights of stairs, right? Maybe 12 if you count the 2 in the basement. And that's what I was doing. I was working on the 7th floor. So I would just walk up 7 flights of stairs every morning. Now, if you can't do 7 flights, normally what I say is you do the first 1 or 2, then get the lift. Don't do it the other way. Otherwise you won't get out of the lift. But I was thinking to myself, you have got a playground here to get fit for climbing up things, right? And walking up slopes, walk up the stairs. So my advice to most people is about how can you integrate things into your life, and also how can you make things super small. I was chatting to my sister's friend the other day, and we're both the same age. We always joke, like with my nieces, one of my nieces, they always think we should get together, right? So this girl that is a friend of my sister's. And I remember when I first met her, maybe 15 years ago, she came round to my house because she was going to live with me for a bit. And she did stay with me for about a month or so. And, you know, I mean, she's quite, she's attractive and stuff, but like nothing ever happened. But anyway, she was saying to me, oh, I put on weight recently and I've stopped running and I think she got injured or whatever. And she's like, say to me, oh, but you'll stay, you look in good shape and all that. And I was thinking, you know what? I haven't really done proper exercise for a good few years. But what I do try to do is, every day I have my rebounding routine. I've got my 5-minute mobility routine. I do my once a week thing in the gym where it takes 15 minutes. But more importantly, I try to move a lot and I try to integrate things when I see them, when I'm able to do it. I hang off a bar when I see a bar, or, do bicep curls with the shopping bags when I can. So for me, it's about how do you integrate into your busy day? How can you integrate whatever it is you want, like the exercise, into your day?
Funny enough, at weekends, my wife, there are certain jobs that we like doing. I'll attempt to be in the garden doing those bits, and often you'll find her hoovering. But that was ever since she discovered that you burn 200 calories an hour hoovering the house.
Mm.
Sometimes that we can be really harsh on ourselves. You wanted to do that run, which would have burned probably the same, and instead you haven't been able to get out because your kid spilled something on the carpet and you've been hoovering for the last half an hour. Actually, if the reason you're doing it is for that calorie burn, I'm not saying it always is, but sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. Like,
Mm.
that's the good example of where you can be
Well,
integrated and
and
understand what a
also,
calorie is.
interestingly enough, there's a study that I believe I quote it in the book that will be coming out next week, about hotel maids and how there were 3 sets of hotel maids, and one were just told, I don't think one were told anything. The other ones were told that exercise is important, blah, blah, blah. And then the third lot were told about how many calories they burnt doing the thing they were doing, like changing the sheets was 20 calories, walking up the stairs. And when they looked after, I think a month or 3 months, whenever it was, they noticed that the group that had been told how much calories they were actually burning had like lower blood pressure, lower, heart rate or whatever it was,
Yeah.
or waist ratio, even though they weren't doing any more shifts. And even though people were
Some of that
still,
be linked to stress, right? One's doing it with a welcome knowing of, "Hey, this is good for me."
yeah,
And the other's doing it
exactly.
probably, "Oh, I've got to go do the hoovering now, and I
I
feel
think
stressed, and I
it
feel."
reminds me of Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about how when he was exercising, and I do believe this as well, but he would he wouldn't just do a bicep curl. He would be feeling and seeing and being in that bicep almost, and noticing that it's doing more effort. And I sometimes I say to people, look, you can take your own arm, and listeners can do the same thing now. They can take their arm out, stretch it out, and they can
Mm.
just bring their hand to their shoulder, right? Without any intention, anything. And the bicep is not doing much right now. Or you can do the same thing with intention and with activating that bicep, and suddenly you're doing a lot more with that same motion.
I think another thing in the integrative bit, but also in response to the listener's question, there are some kind of questions you could ask in a coaching capacity to help find purpose. But one question would be, if you had more time, what would you do? If you had less time, what would you immediately give up? If you had more money, what would you do? If you had less money, what would you give up? If you had, or if you knew more people, what would you do? If you knew less people, what would you do? These are the questions that sometimes help us find our purpose and understand what it is that we're doing. Because a lot of the time we fall into habits. We do them because it's what we've always done. They don't always serve us. And you realize, actually, I could turn this into an integrative habit in your example and make it something that's really purposeful, rather than just something that I do. Whether that's, I was trying to give an example of the parental thing, but turning something into what is currently a chore into something you do together with your child,
Hmm.
as an example. So, maybe you brush your teeth with your child every day and make that a bit of a bonding time, and have some music on, or when you are cooking, you always have your son or daughter's favorite music, you dance as you cook. I don't know, whatever those things are, but I think you can be integrative in different ways. But what's important to you, if importance coming back from holiday is spending more time with your children, and you don't always want to be the rushed person rushing around, and you end up dictatorial, you end up not being the person that you want to be, the best version of yourself. Now just sit back and as you know as well as I do, the first step in any of these things is awareness. Like, be aware of how you are in that moment. Be aware of what other opportunities, integrative examples you might be able to do instead, how that might be coming across, how you might be able to change those things. And also be kinder to yourself. Like, when we're on holiday, all the routines go out the window. That's the point of it. You don't have to take your kid to school. The point of it is we do relax, we do switch off, because you your holiday is your own. You can do whatever the hell you want, but that's not necessarily practical in day-to-day life. So it's having that awareness, you're coming back to it. Let's make those practicalities as purposeful as possible. Make everything mean something. And you've told me many times that if you're gonna strengthen your Achilles or your calves, and this is a few years ago, and I used to pull my calf out regularly. You're like, why don't you do calf raises while you brush your teeth? It's like, yeah, okay.
Mm.
Do those
I
every
mean,
single day, and the injury
w-
goes away.
a couple of things I want to say as well, both to the listeners on this topic, is really language, right? The questions that you ask yourself. So
So
rather than asking, and I'm not saying our listener was asking these questions, but let's say, oh, why don't I have time to do this? Or, why is life such a rush? Or why is I again, this is a chapter in my book, or a section in my book, The Power of How. So obviously people have heard of the book, The Power of Now. It's a bit of a take on that, but the power of how. So your mind is a bit like Google, and depending on the kind of question you put into it, you're going to get the answer back. And so rather than say, why don't I have time to exercise, or, why am I out of shape, or whatever it is, it's like, how can I integrate exercise into what I'm doing? How can I make this activity that I'm doing more enjoyable? For me, it's about, and I've asked that question for so many times. I remember a simple example, right? I had bought new pots and pans. And at the time, my cupboard only fit the pots and pans that were in there. And I bought without thinking about it. And then I thought, oh God, they won't fit, right? Why did I buy these pots and pans? And then I asked a different question. I was like, how can I arrange this cupboard in such a way that I will be able to fit those pots and pans in? And then new solutions came up, and they're simple solutions, right? I stacked it differently. I did all this, right? Whatever. And it fit, but it was the power of how. And so do not underestimate the power of the language that you use. And just by asking that question,
Well,
how, rather than why
I mean,
sometimes.
neurologically, this works as well, right? Because what you're essentially describing is also a form of cognitive reframing, right? It's reframing the question in your mind. So going from that negative place where you've got that amygdala's suddenly in gear because you're stressed,
Me.
you bought these things that don't fit, and you're immediately, it gets all the wrong circuitries going on in the brain. But actually, I mean, elite special forces, they will name a fear. They will say, this is doubt, this is shame, this is anger, this is whatever. But when you name something, it allows your prefrontal cortex to come back into play, and that's, you can start to make better decisions. You start to reframe it, and in your example, you're able to name what you were feeling. frustrated I've got these wrong things that don't fit. But just in naming it, you've brought your prefrontal lobe back into play, and you start making good decisions about how you stack it in there, and it takes all that stress away. I think often the time we live in the moment without taking that space to breathe, which I know you're obviously a big believer in, to look at it differently, to just we talked about reframing many times on this show, but I don't think we do it enough. We've got to do it with awareness.
Well, I mean, this is the other thing I wanted to say on the second point, which is about reframing. And this was, I think, maybe my second video on my introductory video series. So on my website, when people type in their email and stuff, they get a free web series. And I think the second video, and I recorded this long time ago, but was about reframing this whole idea of exercise. So I think on the video, I draw a circle and I write in the circle, I have post-its in the circle about all the things that we need to do in life, right? Pick up the kids, cook, pay the bills, go to work, commute, whatever. And then I have another post-it and I'm trying to shove in exercise, right, somewhere, but it just doesn't fit, right? And my whole thing with that whole explanation was actually, let's scrap that and then let's create the foundation, or the circle is exercise. So the life becomes around exercise or health and vitality, whatever word you want to use. And then everything else has to integrate around that. So then suddenly you're asking different questions like, how do I commute to work to actually allow me to get some exercise in? Okay, well, maybe I walk, maybe I cycle, maybe I whatever. How do I spend time with my kids? Where that, I'm still able to exercise. Okay, we'll go to the park, we'll play frisbee, we'll do whatever, rather than trying to add. I think that's where people go wrong, in my opinion and my experience, is that people are trying to add exercise or health principles in to an already overworked and overpacked life. Whereas if you come of it from a reframe point of view, and as that's the foundation, and classic case in point, right? I've just spent 3 weeks in Amsterdam, right? As you know, you've probably been to Amsterdam. Lots of listeners have been to Amsterdam. You know the bike situation, right?
Yeah,
Their
yeah.
entire society is set up for making active. I didn't see any overweight person that I can think of in that 3 weeks. Honestly, I didn't see a single overweight person. And the whole society is set. Not that I'm saying exercise is the only indicator, that's going to help you with your weight. Of course, it's not, right? But the whole society is set up. And also what's interesting is, like, drivers respect the cyclist way more than they do in other countries. And one of the reasons, I believe, is because every single driver is probably a cyclist as well, or at least was a cyclist when they grew up. So there's a different reverence. And also cyclists have preferential rights of way in places and all sorts of things. But the whole point is that society has been set up for active travel. Like, everyone is cycling. Everyone is cycling. The steps that you have to climb up have little rivets that you can put your bike tires in so you can push the bike up the stairs easily. Everything is set up around that. So it's not even a thought in their head about, oh, how can I take my bike to get to there? No, because you can take the bike on the train or the bus. You can take it up the stairs. It's part of it. So for my thing is, the reframe for people, in my view, is you make that the foundation and everything piles in on top of that, and then you start thinking about things slightly differently. That would be the thing I would say.
I was trying to think of it because I like my parables, as you know, and I think I've told one before, which is, and you'll know it, it's because I brought it up on the show, which is the overflowing teacup. It's where the professor goes to visit a Zen master and says, "I want to discover the meaning of life," and the Zen master starts to pour him a cup of tea, and it keeps pouring and pouring until the tea starts overflowing, overflows the cup, overflows the saucer. And the professor goes, "Hey, hold on! You need to stop. You need to stop." And the Zen master says, he's illustrating how the professor's mind is. That your mind is too full of your own opinions and preconceptions to learn anything new. First, you need to come back and return when your cup is empty.
Mm.
The idea that we stack, scaffolding, isn't it? We stack, and stack, and eventually there's no room. A bit like your pin drawer. You keep putting pins everywhere. There's no room to fit these things in. We need to let something go sometimes, and look at that wheel of life, which is quite a famous coaching tool, where you look at where you're scoring and where things are falling down. And often we do things that just don't serve us. We just get into that space of habit and
Well,
ritual.
that's it. And I think, like, we need to address our habit, and often the habits don't necessarily have to change a huge amount. For example, a couple of integrative examples, right? Real life examples. where I try to integrate exercise or well-being practices into my life, the habit remains the same. Let's say, for example, I'm making my juice and my smoothie in the morning, which I come down and I prep the veg for. That's a habit, right? And that's a good habit. But at the same time, in the drawer that I pull out and get the knife from, I also have one of those resistance bands. And so what I do is I put the resistance bands around my thighs in the morning. So as I'm walking around, putting my phone on charge, filling the kettle up, doing all that, I'm doing side steps or things, and I'm creating resistance. And then the other thing that we've done recently, and this was actually, to be fair, my mum's idea, is I've got one of those acupuncture mats,
Yeah, I've
the
got one as well. Yeah.
spikes that generally is supposed to be for your back, right? You lie on them and relax, but we often use them for our feet. But sometimes we forget to like use them. And yes, we've had it near where we watch TV. But actually, genius idea. What she did is in the downstairs toilet, she just put that mat underneath the wash basin. So every time we go to wash our hands now, we step on these
It's a good
spikes.
idea. I like
Yeah.
that.
And it's great because you're gonna be washing your hands anyway, right? Hopefully. So why not do something that stacks on top?
Well, I
So
mean, it's like years and years ago when I used to do obstacle course racing. I think I've told you this before. I was lacking grip strength, so I put a pull-up bar on every doorway. I
mm,
can't go through the door without doing a pull-up. Now, I don't do that anymore, but unfortunately, they're still on every doorway because what they do is they misshape your doors over time. They
um,
push them, but so they're still up. But yeah, my daughter's and son's friends like losing when they come round.
maybe I
But
won't get one because I'm thinking about what I can do in Brighton because I don't have anywhere to hang at the moment in Brighton, and I missed my beam. I've got the beam here, and I
you're
don't have.
just much more likely to keep some of that up if it's in your house like that. You're better off doing one of those 5 times a day than telling yourself, "I'm gonna do 5 a day in one go." That's a habit so much harder to break, but doing 5 over the course of a day every time you walk through the doorway, and it's only 1 each time, much easier to keep that habit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that you make it incidental. Like I remember when I was designing the gym here, and my sister was saying, "Oh, but you've got the garage. Why don't you put the gym in the garage?" I'm like, "I can't do that because I won't stumble across it
Yeah.
often enough.
Yeah.
I need to be able to fall into the exercise, right? I need to like I don't have it here, but I've got it somewhere else. Like the gripper thing that you have. Because initially I tried to keep all the exercise equipment in one place. I'm like, actually, no, that isn't the most useful part of the exercises. Have that exercise equipment spread out so that when you stumble across it, you use it, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, when I'm chopping my veg, I'm doing some leg exercise. When I'm washing the dishes, I'm doing some leg exercises. And now I don't do that all the time, but the visual reminder is there because every time I open the drawer, it's there ready to go. And so a lot of the time I'm not doing an hour exercise a day or 3 times a week or whatever. I'm doing a little bit, but often throughout the day.
But
That
you know what? The best advice for the whole question is probably back to the 3 Cs you mentioned earlier, right? Control what you can, cope with what you can't, and concentrate on what's important, and just be kind to yourself. Do everything you do with awareness. Maybe do a bit of a life audit on where you're spending your time on your life domains and just seeing if there's something you can drop or something that doesn't mean so much, or you can cut some time in, spend it elsewhere. Integrate the things that you do, leveraging on what you've just mentioned and building on that, but also add the why into the questions. If you're doing something with your kids, like rather than telling them what to do, try and make them part of the
Mhm.
story, give them the reasoning why they're doing it. They could ease up your workload. You know, they'll actually do
Yeah.
more for you to help you with your time constraints. If there's something, if they understand the why behind it, they get a less stressed mummy, they get a less stressed daddy, they get more time with their parents, they get to watch the extra thing on TV because or whatever it is, you know.
I think
They need
one
to
more thing
understand they're doing it not because we're telling them, but because there's a why behind it.
One more thing I wanna add while it's popped into my head is it felt like that the listener was, had lots of good habits and they kind of fell a little bit or whatever. And so my advice as well to everyone is sometimes you do have to scale back, right? Maybe you had 10 great habits that you used to do on a daily basis, and now because the kids have gone to secondary school and things are a bit more chaotic, whatever, and you're really annoyed at yourself because you can only fit in 5 of them. Right? I would scale back things and often when I've got a to-do list, I used to have this to-do list and I used to get overwhelmed with it sometimes. And now I just think, what's one thing I can do? My phrase is one thing a day. And so it's like, especially when I moved into my property a couple of years ago, I was thinking there's hundreds of things I need to do for the house. I need to do this. I need to put this screw in. I need to do it. And it all became a bit much. And so then my goal became, what's one thing I can get done today? Just one thing. There's a book actually called The One Thing That I Really Like. And I would say I would go for it from that perspective. I would say, what's one wellness practice I can do? Because yes, you're getting up at 5:30 and you still can't fit everything in. So what's one thing I can do? Maybe it's taking 5 minutes of the day to sit and breathe in the sun. That's it.
It's a similar idea to what I talk about in my talks when I'm doing corporate talks, which is everyone has a to-do list, not everyone has a done list. To-do list is never ending. When you take something off it, you add something to the bottom, right? It's you never complete that list. You can have a daily done list. Sometimes that can be you can make it as silly or as complex as you like. It could be when you're feeling low like I am, I managed to go downstairs, make a cup of tea before I went to bed. Whatever, at least I've done something for myself. Or you can make it as complex as you like. You can tick it off. But what's really beautiful about a done list, I don't use it in my life, but I use it in my work. I have a done list at work because I know my to-do list is always too big. So at the end of the day, rather than look at my to-do list as we inevitably do and go, I feel like I've achieved nothing, it's got bigger and bigger. I can look at my done list and go, okay, set out today, but if I hadn't worked today, I would not have got these 6 things done. And actually I moved them after the to-do list. Rather than cross them off, I write them onto my done list. And it's, you've managed to finish literally every work day with some sense of achievement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really recommend it. There's no reason you can't put that into your
I think that's
wider
great.
life domain as well. Today, I'm being really angry with myself because I've lost the opportunity to do X, Y, and Z because my kids stand their hand at the door. Okay, but on your done list this morning, before that happened, you had breakfast with your son. You managed to get a walk in with your dog. You managed to get a good day of work in. Just looking at those 4 or 5 things
Mm.
on that done list can make you feel, all right, it hasn't been a total write off.
Yeah. Well, you know what that is actually? It's a bizarre form, not bizarre form, but an alternative form of a gratitude list. Because what it really is saying, like gratitude is talking about what you have rather than what you haven't got, right? It's like, oh, I haven't quite got £1 million yet, or I haven't got this, right? And thinking about that, it's like, no, I got up today. I can breathe. I can go to the library. I can do all this. And it's focusing on what you've got rather than what you haven't got. Right. And I think that's beautiful because it's effectively like a gratitude list. You're saying
Yeah,
like,
I hadn't thought of it like that because, yeah, I get
yeah,
it's more,
when you were
what
saying
you've
it,
got,
it
it's what
just
you've
jumped
done.
out at
It's
me that that's
similar
really what it
concept.
is. It's like focusing what you've got and what you've accomplished, right? Rather than, oh, look, my friend who I went to school with is a multimillionaire and I don't have that, even though I was better at
So,
math than
full
him.
full
It's like, oh, actually, I've
transparency
got this, you
full
know?
transparency here, and you'll know this because we spoke offline before we joined on. The easier option today would have been not to have done this recording because 'cause I'm feeling ropey.
Mm.
But I've said to my wife, "If I can get this recording done, I can put it on my done list today, I can feel like if I don't achieve anything else, like,
Yeah.
that's my done list done for today. I'm feeling ropey, but I've managed to get the recording done. I've done a couple of calls before this. My head is spinning. I've got motion sickness, which is very strange to be on a call with vertigo, but that's a big thing. I can look at my day. It hasn't been a write-off. I've achieved
Mm.
something. I had a great chat with you. We've answered listener questions. I enjoy these shows immensely anyway. But that goes on my done list, or it could be a gratitude list, whatever way you wanna call it, but I will physically go downstairs because 'cause I've got a done list, and I will write it on there, "Podcast done," and then later when I look at it and when I come in tomorrow, hopefully feeling a bit better, I can look at it and go, I got those 2 things done yesterday. Great.
Yeah.
It also starts the next day well because you look at
Yeah.
yesterday's done list and you go, okay, off we go."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I like that idea. I think, it's a great idea for people to latch onto.
Now, before we go, mate, I'm just conscious of time, but you said your book comes out. Let's make this
Yes,
we should be telling our listeners where we can get hold of this thing because by the time we publish this episode, it's probably gonna be out.
it will be out by the time because it's gonna come out on my birthday, which is September the 10th. I by the time they listen to it, the price I'm gonna do a special promotional price, basically the lowest price I can put it on Amazon, so I get no royalties, on the first 72 hours, but it will be called Super Vitality. There's gonna be 2 versions of the book. So there's Super Vitality, which is the 467 page, 503 citation mammoth book, which is I think the one book that people like, if you only ever read one book on health, vitality, well-being, longevity, this would be the book that you would need, and you would know more than 99.999% of people in the world.
Having seen it, by the way, it really is A to Z on
And it talks about
health. It's
what we've
excellent.
talked about today. It talks about habit formation. It talks
Your life's
about
work, really, isn't it?
yeah,
Everything's in
it
there.
is my
It's
life's work. It's my
incredible.
opus. It's my the reason for my being for the last 12 years, 13 years when I developed that model. And then the smaller version, which is about 132 pages, pocket size, basically the size of your palm. And that's the same model, the leadership beat model, which is also on the wall behind me. But a bit more digestible, not quite as in depth, and we don't go into it in depth in the same way we do in the big book, of course. But they'll both be out. So Super Vitality and Super Vitality Light Edition. They both have similar covers, but slightly different. So ideally, my recommendation, obviously, is to buy both because then you have one as a reference book, one to dip into, and then easier to kind of manage that way, I think. So buy both is my recommendation. Please leave a review as well. But that will be so I'll be sending you a note next week about it. And I know you're going to want me to sign a copy, but I do want people to buy copies in the first instance because it helps bump up the Amazon stuff and then get the reviews on there and stuff. But yeah, that'll be September 10th, which is also my birthday. So that can be a birthday gift from the listeners to me if they purchase and leave a review. And mainly, like I said, I'm not making money off this. It's more to get the word out there because, like I said, this has been my life's work for the last 10 years. I live it, I breathe it. That's why I've got my symbols everywhere, the colors, everything is about this model.
You told everyone today that you put resistance bands around your knees while you wash up and walk around the kitchen. People know you live and breathe this stuff. Trust me.
Yes. Yeah, there
Trust
we
me.
go. And that's the secret, honestly. It's like try to integrate it, try to use it as the foundation. And then when you understand that and you understand how you can do this, because most of what I teach is about integrating it into normal life, right? And how to reframe yourself in thinking about it. A bit like the Dutch with their cycling. Is like, how can you make that just a de facto thing, right? Well-being as a de facto thing. So you're not really actually thinking about it, really.
I'm proud of you, buddy. I think we met, was it 2011, 2010? And,
We met in 2010.
10, and you just started this journey then, and you've come a long way. And I have to say, I've seen the book in its first form, and there might be a couple of edits made since then, but it
Well,
is
I had to change. You know what happened over the summer?
change the cover.
I had to change the breathing record, breath hold record, because the breath hold record in my book was 26 minutes and something, but someone broke it in June, and then I realized that in July. So I had to go and update all the versions of the book, the citations, the end notes, and all of that, because I wanted it to be as up to date as possible.
Sure. Well,
'Cause about 29 minutes.
it's an incredible body of work. I'm really proud of the work you've done. I have nothing but plaudits for what I've seen so far. And if anything we've discussed in the 50, 60, 70 episodes we've done over the last couple of years in this show has resonated, it'll be money well spent. And if you can get it for a steal when it goes on launch price, then I would really recommend you go and do that. It's yeah, it'll have a pride of place in my bookshelf for sure, as your other books do, to be fair. But this one is the one I'm most excited about. So yeah,
So cool.
good stuff. If anyone wants to know how to get a copy signed, drop me a message privately if you've got my number, or find us on Instagram. It's the best place to be.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Harry will look at those in reverence and do what he can. But you can find us at mindful_pass_podcast.
Maybe we should have a listener meetup at some point. And,
Yeah, let's do it.
in London,
Do it.
we get a few people, the listeners together.
Sounds
Do
like
it
a
all.
plan.
Cool.
Right. Well, good luck for the 10th, my friend.
Well, good
Well
luck
done.
as well for
Congratulations.
your vertigo.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. Very
no.
bizarre. I don't wish it on anybody. But hopefully I'll
Yeah.
be back to normal in a couple of days once the antibiotics.
Maybe going and watching Top Gun Maverick with all the spinning
No.
planes might help.
I ain't doing any of that. No.
I'm going for the extreme. Okay, you want something else again. All right, lie
Always
down.
a pleasure. Thank you, listeners. Please leave us a review, subscribe if you get a moment. Check us out on Instagram. That'd be really handy. We're trying to build a following there, and our questions can live on the Instagram channel. So check us out, find it, and enjoy. And we'll see you in next episode pretty soon.
Take care, everybody. Bye bye.